Thank you, Linda. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning, especially to talk about women in marketing leadership. Wanted to start with probably, just to, we're in France. What is the thing you're most excited about here that you've seen, that you were excited about coming in here at the Cannes Lions?
So this is probably a non-traditional answer, but this is my favorite marketing event every year, and it's truly because of the community. I have met some of my best friends through brand innovators. Hi, Mark. Um, and it's just so much fun to be together, sharing, words of wisdom about being a woman in leadership, about marketing, and just catching up in general. So love seeing old and new friends alike.
I feel like that is a great non-traditional answer. All right. So you were recently promoted to CMO of Danone. Tell us a little bit about your journey to this role, and were there any experiences that were particularly influential on your way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in marketing and brand management my entire career. I started at Frito-Lay, which was a great foundational training program for brand management. They make sure that you rotate across brand management, innovation, shopper marketing before you reach a certain level. And so I did all of those rotations. And then I actually raised my hand and asked for a rotation into field sales, which again, non-traditional. But I figured if I'm going to be a marketer and I want a seat at the table actually driving the business, you need to understand more than just marketing. And so I actually moved from Texas up to lovely New Jersey. Any people from New Jersey in the house? All right. Working out of one of their field sales offices there. And I was, a young marketer with no sales experience, all of a sudden managing a team of mostly men over the age of 45. So you can imagine what that was like.
I am curious.
Yes, they were more than a little skeptical about this little, Texan showing up to run the show. But it taught me so much about leadership, not just about sales, right? I raised my hand to get the functional experience and understand the business, but it taught me so much about leadership, how to connect with people, how to motivate people, how to drive career development, build careers. It was, a really, really critical experience in my journey. And I think really helped me once I did get a seat at the table later in my career.
Amazing. So let's talk about your experience at Danone. Are there any campaigns you're working on or have worked on that you are really excited about or were excited about?
All of them. So I joined Danone 4 years ago. And when I joined, the president at the time was like, our marketing is stuck in the 80s. We need to do something about this. We had very traditional product focused campaigns and very traditional media strategies. And so we've really spent the past 4 years trying to shake things up. I would say one of the ones I'm most excited about is on International Delight, which is a $1 billion brand, an International Delight creamer brand for those that don't know. And we shifted our strategy entirely from traditional linear TV to digital and social. We're now one of the fastest growing brands on TikTok, really trying to recruit that younger generation. We have a parody of a reality TV show called Creme House that you can watch online that was just greenlit for season 2. And so really tapping into the culture and the trends that resonate with that younger consumer.
I feel like I'm sensing a trend in some of your answers in terms of non-traditional, even when we're thinking about how it is you're setting up your media buys, moving away from some traditional channels. Is that like kind of a quality that you really think has taken you far in your career?
Yeah, it's funny. I wouldn't have necessarily thought about that or put those threads together until you sent that. But yeah, I don't like to play by the rules all the time. I speak my mind. And so, yeah, I guess that is a bit of a thread in taking risks. I think that's really important, particularly as a marketer. You're never going to have all the information. I'm a data geek and I mine data and insights as much as possible. But at some point, you have to make a choice. And you have to be comfortable with ambiguity and, just take a leap of faith. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. My team is very much test and learn. We run a ton of pilots before we really take the full leap, and that seems to work for us.
So, as a fellow data geek, I am going to ask a follow up question on this. What do you think about the intersection of data and art when it comes to creativity, media, and how do you think about that?
That's my favorite intersection. I love marrying kind of the data and the art of the creativity of marketing. I believe data is an input, not a decision maker. So we do a ton of upfront data mining and a ton of testing, product development, creative development. We have a very rigorous testing process but it's not the deciding factor. We use it as an input. And at the end of the day, you have to trust your gut. And I have had campaigns that scored terribly in traditional testing methodology that ended up being some of the most successful brand campaigns. So sometimes you do have to take that risk and trust your gut.
So I feel like that is a good jump to another question I have for you. So at Teads, we are really focused on the intersection of creativity and media. But so I'm interested about your last comment here and the notion of maybe creative that didn't look like it was going to do so well pre-market, but then it was a phenomenal campaign. How do you think about the intersection of creativity and creative and media planning, media buying? Do you think there's things we should be doing differently in that space?
That's a great question because I don't think enough brand marketers think about that intersection. And we ensure, we call it connections planning. You can't develop your creative without understanding the media piece of it. So my executive creative director and my VP of media are joined at the hip. They start all the way from the brief. They help write the brief together so that we're building that holistic campaign where the creative and the media work together.
I think that, one of the things that I think about is we all see the numbers that show the role of creative in particular relative to overall marketing effectiveness. But in a lot of ways, the performance of those two channels still feels relatively siloed, in particular when you're thinking about in market and how it is you're analyzing kind of media performance versus how a creative is performing. What do you think about that? And are there ways we should be thinking about that differently?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest opportunities in the industry today. We do traditional marketing mix analysis, which is great for traditional media. But as we've shifted our media strategy from more traditional channels to social, to digital, to retail media, to shopper marketing, you can't get that holistic measurement through the traditional providers. So that's been a huge black hole for us, and we're really pushing our partners to drive more holistic measurement so we can get that point of view.
Makes sense. So we are here to talk about being a woman in marketing leadership. So definitely want to dive in a little bit more on that. So as a woman in marketing, I know you mentioned earlier you had an experience where you had to lead a team of men over 45. But is there anything that you think has been unique about your experience in marketing to leadership as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, I think, stereotypes exist for a reason. And I think there's a nugget of truth in all of that. And I do think women in general don't speak up as much as men, right? We do the work and we expect to be recognized for it. Whereas men will kind of walk into the room, own the room, ask for something. And so the advice I always give to my mentees is ask for what you want, ask for what you need. The worst they can do is say no. Right? Ask for the promotion, ask for the raise, ask to work on a certain project or brand. Just speak up, know your worth, know your value, and ask for it.
Have you had any experiences in terms of kind of working with men that have also helped shape where you have gotten today, aside from even just managing, but male mentors, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had great experiences and terrible experiences, and I think both have shaped me. I'll talk about an experience that I think was really a great learning experience for our team recently at Danone. So we have a brand called Light and Fit, which is a yogurt brand whose purpose is all about empowering women. And we relaunched the brand last year with this new positioning, a new campaign, etc. And we were in the meeting presenting the campaign to a very senior leader. And he made a comment around, I forget his exact words, but it was basically to the extent that, shouldn't the women smile more in this? They don't look happy enjoying the yogurt and all of this. And it was like this just like mic drop moment where all the women in the room, because the entire team that had worked on this were women, were like, do you know how many times we've been told in our careers, you should smile more? Like, come on. And then he followed it up with an equally tone deaf comment to the point where I had one of the women after so upset that she wanted to call HR. And I said, let me deal with this. And so I called him up and I was like, hey, I don't think this was your intent, but here's how your comments landed and here's how they were interpreted. And he was shocked. He had no idea. He immediately called a meeting with all those same women and gave the most heartfelt speech and said, this is a real learning moment for me. In my career around, being more careful with your words, really thinking about impact versus intent. And I think that was, a really eye-opening moment for a lot of people, because I think those comments happen all the time and women just are used to them and we don't say anything. And so I was really proud of this one woman on the team for speaking up,
Absolutely.
and then the way he addressed it as well.
Agree. What is the best advice you've gotten as a woman in marketing?
Ooh, best advice I've gotten. I think to believe in yourself, right? Again, I think, sometimes women suffer a crisis of confidence. I was actually having a conversation with someone at dinner last night that, a man will be, 50% qualified for a job, but believe he can do it 100%, whereas women won't even apply for the job unless they think they're 110% qualified. And so I think we need to build ourselves up more, right? I have this wonderful community of women in the marketing community that we call ourselves the Boss Babes.
Love it.
We meet once a month for dinner. We had dinner Sunday night here in Cannes. Some of them are in this room. And we are an incredibly supportive community of each other, and we build each other up. And I think that's really important.
I couldn't agree more. Same experience with the community of women I've grown in. Just when you need somebody to kind of have your back and remind you of how amazing you are, to have that group of women. So I have two final questions for you, and then I do want to give a little bit of time if there are any questions from the audience. But the first is, what advice would you give the Linda who is starting her career, and what advice would you give women starting their career today? Is it the same? Is it different?
The advice I would give myself is probably it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. I think, you like that, Soph? Life is hard, right? And I'm somebody that believes in what I call work-life, intersection. You use, the intersection word. And I've had a lot of personal challenges that have kind of carried over into my professional career. But I believe those also make me a better leader. I'm very open. I'm very vulnerable with my team. And I think that's made me a better leader. And so that's probably, advice I would give to others as well, is bring your whole self to work. It's okay to be you. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be vulnerable. That is the human-centric quality in all of us that I think makes us better human-centric leaders.
Amazing. So we do have a few minutes. Are there any questions from the audience? We wanted to give you guys an opportunity. Don't be scared. Believe in yourself. Oh.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Cynthia. I'm with Brand Innovators. But I loved earlier you were starting to talk about a little bit about your experience that really kind of formed you into being a leader and what that took you into the next stage of your career. Was there any kind of tactical things in that experience that you felt were really pivotal in kind of evolving into learning about the backside of the business and how you became, more of a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I love learning. So every year I kind of force myself to learn a new aspect of the business, whether it's diving into the P&L and understanding, deep into finances. Some of my finance partners have been my best friends and supporters throughout my career. One year I made it a mission to overcome my fear of public speaking. So probably wouldn't be up here today if I hadn't done that. But yeah, I think it's just continually learn, figure out, where the gaps in your knowledge base are, and fill those. And then on the leadership side, it's really just meeting as many people as possible. I've gleaned so many insights from the people I've worked with, the people I've met through the Brand Innovators community, my Boss Babes. And so that's definitely shaped me as a leader.
What gives you the most energy?
My daughter. So yeah, you knew I was going to say that. So I am a single mom of a 14-year-old, which parenting a 14-year-old is no joke for those of you that have teenagers. We went through a rough few years, but she is now my best friend. She has traveled with me on many work trips when I have not had childcare at home. She's actually spoken on the Brand Innovators stage at an event in Colorado. And she makes me a better person, but also a better marketer. She is my focus group of one for Gen Z. And as we're trying to recruit that younger consumer into the portfolio, her insights are invaluable. So she definitely gives me the most energy.
One follow-up question for me. So also have some kids. My daughter's a little bit younger, as I mentioned to you before we got on. Do you have any advice for working moms just in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really helped our relationship because, right, we're all, successful business professionals. We work a lot of hours, is helping her understand exactly what I do and introducing her to the people at work. So when I'm on a call with Carlos at 8 p.m., she knows who Carlos is and it gives her context, right? I think COVID was actually really good for that because all of a sudden I was at home doing meetings and she could join the Zoom calls and meet everybody. I've brought her to every office I've ever worked at so that she can meet people in person. I've brought her on work trips. I've involved her in, the content. And so I think that helps her see why I'm so excited to be, the CMO of Danone and doing this every day.
Amazing. I love that. Just the notion of also your daughter seeing you be so successful and seeing all of the things that you do every day.
Although it's a double-edged sword. She thought I was a big deal until she got on stage with me at Brand Innovators. And during the Q&A, no one asked me a single question. They only asked her. And afterwards, she was like, nobody wanted to talk to you, Mom. They only cared about me.
Amazing. All right. Well, Linda, I think that's the time we have today. It was so lovely to chat with you today. All right. I think we're
Awesome.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.